Call to order, Town of Prescott Valley Study Session, February 2nd, 2023. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Leyva? Here. Councilmember Greer?
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly?
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Present.
Vice Mayor Hunt? Here. Mayor Palguda?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 2A, chickens and rabbits. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. We have a presentation today for chickens and rabbits. This presentation is not intended to ruffle any feathers, but it is responsive to interest for the residents of the town of Prescott Valley. Staff was actually asked to look at our current town regulations, and it found that in all districts except agricultural, chickens and rabbits are allowed on lots that are 1 acre or greater. There is a limitation of 2 such animals per acre, and subject to, of course, existing restrictive covenants. They also must be kept in conformance with Town Code Section 60310 C and D, which is the nuisance and sanitary disposal of solid waste deposited by the animals. We also did a survey of other jurisdictions in Arizona. We found communities like Prescott, Sedona, Flagstaff, Glendale, Gilbert, and a couple of other ones I'll get into in a minute. They all allow, they don't prohibit chickens or rabbits. The zoning districts, they're different in every jurisdiction, all districts, residential, agricultural. It's interesting that Glendale does not allow them in residential areas, but in rural and suburban residential, they are allowed. The quantities also differ from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There's no limits in most of the jurisdictions except for Sedona and Flagstaff and a couple of other ones that I'll be showing you in a minute. You can have 4 to 6 for a 20,000 square foot lot. You can have 5,000 at 19,000 and under. And when you go to 20, it goes up in 5 increments. So you can have 5, 10, 30 at 30,000, 4,000, and up to 25 and 80,000 square foot lots. Other issues that other jurisdictions came across were the sanitary conditions, coop sizes, setbacks, and of course, most of them prohibit roosters. Now, there's only 2 jurisdictions of the ones that we surveyed that require permits, and that's Sedona and Flagstaff, and all other jurisdictions at this time do not require a permit. As I mentioned, we surveyed Scottsdale also, Tempe, Mesa, Chandler, and of course, Marana. And again, those all allow them, allowed in all districts, mostly residential, except Marana says that they also ranchette residents, and the number that they allow in Marana, which is the big winner, is up to 40 chickens per acre, and they do 1 per 1,000. So there is some jurisdictions that have limits like 5 per lot, and that's it. They're called a good, but there are other ones that have other calculations. And again, other regulations, other noises, the sizes of coops, setbacks, again, are similar to the other one, and none of those require permits. So this is a lot of information. As we've gone through and looked at the survey, we found that the only differences are in the zoning, the quantity, and the regulations. So they cater pretty much what they want to do in regards to chickens and rabbits. And I guess it's per jurisdiction, so it's up to their comfort level at what we want to do. One other thing that we like to do is other issues that we have for council consideration today is sanitary regulations. It's something that we want to look at. Coops kept clean, free of offensive odors, appropriate feed and water. Shelter standards, do we want to limit to 4 square feet for a chicken and rabbit or 120, the height of coops? Zoning regulations, do we want them just in the rear yard, setbacks from existing structures, from neighbors? Animal welfare, do we want chickens to be kept in a coop from dusk to dawn, provide a free range area, water available for them at all times? And of course, animal control. Do we want to prohibit roosters? Do we want them, of course, not at large? And do we want to allow people to slaughter them on-site or off-site? So these are some of the things that, you know, we want to put out there for your consideration that were issues in other jurisdictions. I've given you a lot of information, and I know there's a lot to think about, but at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, is there an opportunity to kind of do an overview from the 30,000 foot level And I know it's important that we also hear from the residents in regards to this. And I think at a later date, hopefully staff can coordinate that sometime next month, where we have a public hearing, where we get to hear from people that are interested or for it or against it. I think we need to hear that. I also think it's important we hear from some sort of chicken expert, or I mean, I guess, is that a farmer? I don't know. What would you say? But someone that would say, hey, this is something that would be doable. I mean, we don't have to hear from it, but if staff could reach out and say, hey, we spoke to someone who has some experience and this is what would work, or this wouldn't work, or it's a terrible idea, or bad for chickens, or whatever that may be, it'd just be good to hear on what they do. In regards to what Marana does, they do 1 for every 1,000 square feet. I think that's a pretty fair assessment in regards to, granted, 40 per acre
acre.
compared to Prescott Valley has 2 per acre,
Correct.
which is kind of a bold move on Marana's part, I suppose. But those are things that I think we should just come back with some sort of, because this is so wide, and just kind of narrow it down to what is consistent, and then council then can build off of that with more questions, I think would be the best way of handling this. And is there more to this?
No, this is
Last
it.
part?
This is the,
Because we didn't touch on rabbits.
they're basically both the same issue, rabbits and.
It covers it the
It
same way.
covers both, yes.
Okay.
So we would be incorporating, anything that we do moving forward will incorporate both rabbits and chickens.
So it would apply to both.
To both, exactly.
Okay. Council? Councilman Hepperly?
Blanked on it. I'm going to ask the rabbit question first. Would this, like, I know it's obviously not called a coop for rabbits, but would there still be a standard for what?
They
touch?
would,
Yeah.
they would be something similar for that. So once we incorporate it for the chickens, we'll just automatically bring the rabbits in the same thing.
Okay, and then I stalled long enough to remember my question. Could we also maybe check with at least a couple of those other districts or the other towns to see if they have had any serious animal control issues with, making sure people are keeping their chickens sanitary and things like that? So just so we can, because I know that's been kind of a concern, is would we need to expand our animal control program in order to make sure that the chickens are being well cared for and things like that? So,
We can definitely do that. As the mayor has mentioned, we're going to do an outreach. We're going to have meetings with the general public, get their input, and hopefully by then we'll have that information in regards to that. So that when we bring it back, if it goes forward, we'll be bringing it back to commission for their review, and the audience will have an opportunity to voice their opinion. We can tighten it up at that point, then and bring it back for your final approval.
Anything else?
I would also like to see a map of the areas that we're considering, because we already know that HOAs won't approve any of this.
Correct.
And we have quite a few HOAs in the area. And it narrows down to just a certain area, the central part of town, maybe the Castle Canyon area. And I would like to see a map of the areas that we are actually considering this.
Yeah, we'll definitely bring a map
Yeah.
to show you the areas or the boundaries of the town. And it's mostly going to be what we call Old Town, the units. You are correct. There's covenants and restrictions in Granville, Pronghorn, Stone Ridge, and it'll be up to their homeowners association to see if they want to change or alter their CCNRs. So, but we will bring a map to show the area that will be impacted by the decision made.
And something else with reference to who would be responsible once we establish any zoning requirements or regulations for monitoring this. Would this be the burden on the animal control? Or would we have to establish a new unit to be monitoring the chickens and rabbits? Or would this affect our budget? What are we looking at here?
Well, we don't think that we're going to be putting a new unit together to monitor yes, exactly. Most of the jurisdictions that we surveyed, animal control was in charge of doing that, but there may be a hybrid situation where we will be doing some of it. Maybe animal control, our code enforcement officers can definitely take that on as a responsibility. So we may be looking at incorporating that just for either code enforcement or animal control. But
Mr.
I
Mayor and
think-
Council, if I could just jump in, if you have a permit process, then it'll probably end up being handled like we do dogs. So it'll be handled primarily out of animal control. If we don't have a permit process and we treat it kind of like just nuisances in general, then more likely it's going to end up being code enforcement and something that our hearing officers would deal with. So that is a significant issue, whether we're going to have a lot of regulations, whether we're going to have permits, whether we're going to do inspections, or whether we're going to do it like some of the communities that just say if we get complaints, we'll respond.
And I also understand that after speaking to a number of different people with reference to people that have also raised chickens, that they, during the summer months, especially in the heat, it really raises the odor a lot more. And so the nuisance of the noise possibly, but the odor would be something significant that we would have to consider.
Yes, that'll be one of the topics that we actually found that was an issue in other jurisdictions. And that had to do, I think the way they took care of that is they had specific setbacks from neighboring properties just for that reason. So the coop couldn't be in the front or how close it could be to the neighbor's yard. And there was always a separation. So they addressed that, but that is something we will also be looking into.
And flies apparently are a huge
Oh,
issue.
okay.
Yeah. And that would definitely be a problem. Yeah.
I have a quick
Thank you.
question as well. I know that when they're talking rabbits, these are lop-eared bunnies that you have a picture of. Those are usually called a household pet, and they are allowed in homes. But when people are raising rabbits, they're usually raising them for a food source. So there will be slaughter on site for most places that want to raise rabbits in a hutch. And also for the chickens, my only concern is what would we do if we had like the avian flu hit or have a problem with salmonella outbreaks? So I would just want to know that there's other considerations. It's fun to jump into something, especially when we're considering the state of the economy right now and the shortage of eggs. I could see where this would be most helpful, and that's why I'm sure we're addressing that today. This didn't come up 4 years ago, per se, so I understand the need for wanting to do this. And I just kind of want to make sure that we're looking at the pros and the cons as well, and that we would have maybe a plan in place to contact chicken owners should there be the fear of something happening, that who knew we would ever have COVID in our area. That was not something ever considered until we had COVID in our area. And so the same thing, I think, with something as serious as avian flu, it does affect poultry. They can be carriers and not necessarily even catch it. So that's just something I would want to consider.
Thank you.
And Fernando, real quick, how many dogs are allowed,
Four adult dogs are allowed in the town of Prescott Valley.
residents?
In a residence, yes.
Have a breed, or they like, as puppies, it's up to a certain age or something? I'm
Correct,
guessing.
yes. Once they become adult dogs, then it's only 4.
Gotcha. So at this point, I think it's clear what we're going to do. We're going to just come back. We'll hear from the residents, and let's just give it ample opportunity to get it out there and find out who wants to talk about chickens. Is there anyone here that came just for this, for chickens? Because there's a lot of new faces here, and I was asking if you were here just for this, sir, for the chickens, because there's a lot of new faces out there, and I just wanted to see if that was the case. So I apologize if you were expecting to speak today about it, but I promise we'll have a time for you to be able to come up and address the council and share your thoughts on it. Hopefully that'll work for you. Oh, and then in the meantime, though, if you don't want to, you can also just send us an email as well and just express whether or not, no, you're shaking your head. No, we're not doing that. Okay. Fair enough, sir. Well, you are welcome back anytime. So again, hopefully it wasn't too much of an inconvenience for you guys to come out today for that. So
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council.
thank you. Next up, item 2B, stormwater drain study. Mr. Pine.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, good afternoon. No animal content in this presentation, unfortunately. One of the, oh, okay. Thought you were going to do that. Thanks, Larry. One of the strategic goals that council has set forth is to increase natural recharge by 25% within I believe it's the next 10 years, through water restoration, watershed restoration, and stormwater mitigation. And so we've partnered with this team here, West Consultants, to help us with that endeavor. And I have Ricardo Aguirre, who I think is going to pull a rabbit out of his backpack after, and Mike Gerlach. They're both here to give a presentation on the master drainage plan and where we're at. And with council's permission, I'd like to have Ricardo come up.
Welcome, sir. Are we going to lead with a dad joke or any sort of chicken pun?
Let me see if I can work it in.
All
to
right,
the
that'd be awesome.
presentation. So bear with me on that. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to present to you. We were invited here today, as Ron indicated, to give you our presentation on where we're at with this project. At the risk of geeking out on you, I'm going to do what I can to keep the strokes broad and but keep it to the point as well. So I think I advanced. Okay, there we go. Highlights of this presentation to you. We're just going to give you the introduction of what the project is about, the current concerns that prompted this project, and then the purpose of the project. We're going to show you what the project area looks like, and we're going to get into the mechanics of where we're at and what we're doing, particularly in the surface water modeling, and then how we're going to take the opportunity of that surface water and use it as a resource to recharge groundwater aquifers. And then we're going to show you the comment cards we're going to be using for this evening's town hall meeting. So the introduction, project introduction is with the goal and the method. So the goal of the project, as I indicated, is to use an existing condition, what we call a rain-on-grid model. It's a two-dimensional model. So the modeling has improved leaps and bounds over the past 20 years. So it's very timely with how the town has grown. And to take that model and understand the existing conditions of where all the flood problem areas are, where all the sediment transport and erosion issues are, and then ultimately find opportunities to use particularly the flooding areas and recharge that water into the ground and establish long-term water security. So that is essentially the goal, the method of which is really focused on this idea of combining surface water runoff as a resource and getting it into the ground for long-term water security. One thing maybe Ron didn't mention, I'm the Director of Land Management and Water Security, so this is my wheelhouse, and this is something that I believe Arizona needs in the crisis that it faces with the water conditions. The current concerns, as you can see here on this illustration, are represented largely by the homes that you may be receiving grievances from, flooding areas that are here within the community, sediment transport issues, as well as even water quality with sediment pollution. So this kind of gives you a snapshot of why we're here and why we've been asked to come and update the drainage master plan and start to come up with more modern solutions to move forward. Purpose of the project is really threefold. I'm kind of already hit some of that. First of which is to mitigate and arrest the flooding that the town is experiencing. And again, the second is to use that water as a resource, but finally, to get some teeth to your study, your manual. We're looking at low-impact green infrastructure solutions, nature-based systems as a means to update that for any other developer to come in. So these are a three-prong approach as we see the benefits for the delivery of this project. One of the things that it's going to be important in collecting this surface water is to adhere to state downstream water rights users. And so our research to date has revealed that according to the ADWR, water becomes appropriable once it falls into a channel carved by nature. But there's some subject matter that we want to look into. It's been suggested in some of the research that prior to that, or this idea of what nature is carving into a channel, there may be some gray area there. Some other gray area that we're looking into is, can we get an exemption if we need flood control to install or construct a flood control facility? So we're exploring that right now to make sure we don't impact the water rights for the state. The process of the project is illustrated in this flow chart. We are essentially in that second green area there, we've largely completed the data collection. We still have some more. In fact, we had some engineers out in the field today collecting some data for hydraulic structures. We were putting in that model, which we're about to wrap up probably in about 2 or 3 weeks. And once we get to that existing conditions model, which Mike will speak about in a moment, we're going to start attacking the areas that are revealing themselves as problem areas, and also finding ways, and I'll speak again after Mike, where we can use those areas for opportunities for recharge. So that's essentially a description of the flow chart there. This is the project area. So when we were awarded the project, we came and we sat with town staff. We defined the watershed as you see on this map. Mike will dig into this more, but essentially we've got large watersheds flowing into the city. We're focusing really with very detailed modeling. Again, rain on grid, 15-foot cells in city, the proper jurisdiction of the city. Mike, I think it's your turn. This is Mike Gerlach.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. So my part primarily is to answer the questions as to where we have flooding problems, what the magnitudes of those problems are, so that we can begin to identify solutions to address those problems. And then again, how do we transcend that to other benefits for the town and its residents? So to accomplish this goal, we've taken our 160 square mile study area and we've broken it out into 2 levels of different scale of detail. Within the corporate limits, we are providing what is currently the state of the art of detail, which is what Ricardo talked about as a 2-dimensional rainfall runoff modeling. And I'm not going to get into the weeds there. Basically, we are taking the top of the science and bringing that to you to answer questions that will benefit the town staff to effectively do their job and the residents and protect people from flooding. Just to throw some numbers out at you, that will result in data points at over 7 million places within the town limits. So every 15 feet, you will know extensive information about how to manage water in your community. So this is an amazing effort that you are embarking on, and we're glad to be part of that. So that area is shown kind of in pink on the screen. The outer areas, the kind of the tannish color, we're using a more limited but still detailed approach to quantify flooding in those areas. But primarily those areas bring water into the community. So we weren't putting as much effort into those zones as we are into the corporate limits. In order to accomplish our goal, we are developing and utilizing extensive data sets to be able to predict what's going on. Land use within the watershed is one of the key data elements that we're using. The town has provided us with a great deal of information that we have enhanced for our purposes of generating information. What you can see here are different hydrologic land use categories. So we've broken it down into residential and commercial, standard land use properties, but we've gone even further than that to quantify actual areas of pavement versus undeveloped land so that we can really nail down where runoff is going. And so we've just completed developing this particular data set. This was hundreds of hours of effort to get to this point, and it's a critical component for our modeling effort. This image isn't as crisp, and I apologize for that, but it's another key piece of information for the modeling and for future recharge opportunities, where we're looking at detailed soil information to figure out where are the best places to recharge water and where water is running off into the ground versus running down the washes and stuff. So another key element that is used in the model. This is a snapshot of what the scale and detail of the model is. So each and every single little square on this image, we will have the list of information shown at the right of your screen. We will know every single bullet point on there at every single cell, every little square on that image. And the little squares cover the entire town limits. You can see this culvert crossing here in particular. We will know how much water is getting to that culvert, how much water is going through that culvert, and how much water is going over the road. We can use that to predict potential flooding issues and help the town staff mitigate potential erosion and flooding issues associated with this and any other location in the town. As a geek out moment, I will offer you a snapshot of what this might look like. If you'll bear with me, I'll get this video going. Come in. Come on. All right. So this shows you water depth for a typical storm event that we designed to. As it happens over the course of time, you're seeing the depth increase across the land surface, drain off down the washes, collect in the Agua Fria River, and then move on through the community. So this is a kind of a coarse overlook of what the kind of information that we'll be providing, but really the heart and the soul of what we're doing is that information at that 15-foot cell size that I showed you in the previous slide. So we will be able to tell you this kind of information everywhere in the town limits again, and where we will take that in our work is to the next step in terms of identifying solutions.
Sir, can I just stop you for a moment? Can you go back to the previous slide?
I can.
So the black dots are drainage problem areas. Are those self-reported drainage problem areas or areas that your team?
So those are coming from previous work and drainage complaints that have been filed in the past. And we are, through our efforts tonight at the public meeting, we're going to be looking to receive more information, more current information from residents that we will incorporate into this analysis and then take it to that next level.
Thank you.
Good question. And so from there, we'll begin the process of prioritizing flooding issues and again, identifying opportunities to use water as an actual resource and not simply treat it as a nuisance. And Ricardo's going to carry us with the rest of the discussion.
Mayor, I assure I'm still looking for that chicken joke in my mind. It might be a rabbit joke, but
I'm confident you'll get there.
okay, bear with me. So we thought it'd be important to put a map of the Prescott AMA so that you can see its reference to, or rather the town's reference to it, because that's going to be an important part of how we relate to long-term recharge opportunities. What we have here, well, let me pause. Everything that Mike just described to you and what it is we're doing is essentially a geospatial massive exercise to overlay maps. What's in front of you here is a depth to groundwater map that illustrates some of the information we've received from your utility department in the existing recharge facilities that exist today for the town, one of which is the North Plains Recharge Facility. And as you can see, just downstream of that orange amorphous shape is a groundwater mount. Now we understand that there are credits that are being received for that, that project, and that surface water may interrupt that. So we need to continue to explore, think outside the box, explore ideas with the utilities department on how we may be able to complement with our recharge enhancements that we're proposing, or these proposed solutions that may be more low impact development. But certainly outside of that area, we're pretty confident with what we're seeing right now that we'll be able to find some opportunities to take floodwater and convert it into an opportunity to recharge the groundwater. We're going to be looking at other, in our analysis, other maps such as groundwater elevation maps, which will look differently, but this is just going to give us a bunch of information on how we can store that surface water long-term to establish long-term water security. This is a zoomed-in version. Similarly, this is not as great of an image as I hoped it to be, but it gives you a better idea. Just to take a step back and look at some of the other colors on the map, you notice that blue, that dark blue color, the reason that that's there is because this is depth to groundwater from the surface. There happens to be the volcanic mountain in that location right there, and so the depth is much greater because you've got the mountain there. And that's why we would look at a groundwater elevation map as a complement to this to see if we can find some strategies on where we want to place that water, and also take advantage of this map, which is what's called the hydraulic conductivity map. And it essentially speaks to the ability for water to permeate or convey through the soil porous medium and get to locations that could be stored for long term. So just again, this is just going to be a big exercise that we've already embarked on from surface to below surface to identify opportunities while solving flood mitigation issues in the town. Finally, this is the comment card that we're going to be putting out tonight for the public to be responding to. We've been working with town staff, particularly Ron and Heidi, I believe, to use your social media outlets as well as the old-fashioned way, which is Ron's email and the website. So I think that really concludes our presentation. And any questions?
So you mentioned being in front of the public tonight at 5:30 here. Can you share what they should expect? Is it going to be a formal presentation? Is it more of an open house type environment? Just share.
Yeah, we've decided collectively for it to be an open house. We've got poster boards that will be put around the room. We've got 5 staff from West Consultants that will be assisting the public with questions, of course, encouraging them to respond in the various mediums of receiving information and through the comments. But yeah, that's what we're expecting to do.
We also have the ability for them to tell us their address, and we can zoom in on a Google Earth image where we can share some of this information specific to their location to kind of help engage them in dialogue and find out what's going on from their perspective that help us do our job better.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, guys. That was really impressive. I think it's something we probably should have already done, and I'm glad we're embarking on it now. And the words that came to mind were amazing, valuable, and very responsible. So thank you very much. Will the study that we're doing, I know you're going to help us with a manual for when we do conditions of requirements, but also help us at open spaces and maybe potential for recreation in certain open spaces?
Absolutely.
Okay, how will that work?
Well, what I like to use the term is bundling benefits. And, the benefits, that would be one of the benefits. Can we create, this is where maybe I might start geeking out, can we create an experience for the public? And can they learn about what we're doing? Some examples that I've been exposed to are actually signage where there might be some type of a stormwater treatment and the public in a park might walk by and look at the sign and be able to experience what's going on there and why the town decided to do it. So I think that could be somewhat recreational as an example. For actual recreation, I think, we've already seen depressions in the parks that are used for large stormwater capture. There could be a benefit for that. I'm not sure what the direction of the town is going to go with the previous presentation, but part of our practice with other local governments in Arizona is actually to use the agricultural practices of regenerative agriculture to promote soil health and improve that soil health. And one metric I think would be important to leave behind is that for every 1% of soil organic matter, the land can retain somewhere between 20 to 60,000 gallons of water per acre. So if you're exploring that practice, and like our experience with the city of Tucson, who desires to get off chemical maintenance, for example, with the parks, and you look towards more biological maintenance, there's an opportunity there to engage with the public and have recreation. And here's a different approach of what we're doing, and now our parks are able to become stormwater capture opportunities as well. So I hope I answered your question there.
And so I guess as part of the end product of the report, we're going to have some recommendations for you, and it'll be things like that. And I'm hearing a lot of education, a lot of instances where we can use education to let residents know how we are conserving and getting the message out. Then my other question then, or comment, is that have, I think, about 20 or 30 lots in town that the town owns that are currently in flood control area. And it's my goal and has been my goal to try to see how we can get those out of flood control so that we could perhaps use them for some sort of attainable housing in the future. Is that something you're looking at too?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're going to give us some sort of recommendations at the end that we can then make into capital improvement projects and fund for the future.
That's exactly right. That's
Perfect.
the purpose of this drainage master study / plan, is to set the existing conditions as they are today. And then once we have established that and identified and confirmed rather issues that you are already hearing about, is to go in and identify a host of hopefully a project that might bundle up several flood control issues in one area and, kill several chickens with one stone, so to speak. There you go. There it is. Anyway, that's the goal, so it's going to take looking at the model and making those decisions, working with town staff, making sure, of course, you all are stakeholders in where we're going with this.
So when will we see you back in front of council? Or will you come back?
We're happy to come back.
Good question. So yeah, when will this portion of the project, it's gonna span over 2 years. So this is the
Yeah,
first
so-
part of it, and then there's another part.
So I think to follow up on the vice mayor's question, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up the existing conditions, then we're going to go to work on identifying solutions. Then we're going to work on those solutions, do some detailed modeling of those solutions, again, including town staff. And then when we've arrived at essentially a consensus of where we should be going is the point in time we should have our second meeting in front of you, and as well as the second meeting with the public, so that they know where we're going. That's what we're contracted to do. But I think into the second year, as Gilbert was saying, once we proceed into design, to begin to explore potential other meetings in front of you to get more specific, ratchet down the details of here's where this is at. This is the capital improvement set aside for you. We believe that this is the order of priority that you should attack the capital improvements, and that way you can plan for your budget and proceed forward.
Even if a community did this study 10 years ago, would you say technology has advanced quite a bit to change the data you're getting? Is that safe to say?
Very safe to say. The technology changes rapidly. In 10 years ago, you would never have been able to achieve this level of data that we're giving you. Never.
And to your knowledge, is any other community in northern Arizona that utilizes what you're doing right now?
Well, you'll be one of the few communities in the state that are taking the level that you are taking this project to. A lot of communities are using this technology, but not for the scale of master planning that you are embarking on. The Phoenix metro area is of course doing this. I think they're in a different situation, but as far as some of the outlying communities like Prescott Valley, you're actually ahead of the curve as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman, and then Councilwoman.
When did you guys start this process?
The project?
Like at what point in this year? Like, how long have you been working on it?
Yeah, September of last year. We
Okay,
started
September
of last year.
of 22?
Correct.
Okay, so did you experience any monsoon season with that, or was it kind of over by then? I'm just wondering if you guys are like stoked for monsoon season to just see all this water in action, or?
Always, yeah. We have a team of people that are ready to go out to the field every day. I mean, any day in the field is better than a day in the office. So we didn't get a chance to get up here during any kind of rain events, but we would welcome the opportunity if you would like to call one up.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
I happened to be here during one event, but I wasn't here on a, let's say, site reconnaissance mission. But it's safe to say that you guys certainly made the right decision to move forward with this exercise.
Councilwoman?
I know a lot of citizens who will be very grateful for this to occur. Over the last couple of years, homes have been damaged inside and out. Their yards have been ruined. We've seen drainage ditches enlarged to accompany the heavy downpours that we've had, and in turn, the streets have become narrower, and it's more difficult for people to park their cars on the streets, and it's people are using sandbags. It's just really been an issue, and so coming up with this plan is, I think, very terrific on the part of our community. And I know there'll be a lot of very happy people once we get this resolved and come up with some kind of mitigation as to how to keep it from, or to resolve some of these issues. And so that the value of their homes can be brought back to what it was when they purchased them. So thank you very much for all of your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else, council? Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, unfortunately, tonight, item 2C will be removed. The individuals that we're going to present were stuck in Dallas, and their planes were all grounded due to the ice storm. So we'll put that on a later agenda. And that's it for tonight, folks. Thanks for coming out.